visiting someone.
All right. Sorry again for my lack of promptness, but I appreciate your patience, and we'll jump right in. So let us begin with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks that you have given us bodies that are healthy and able to serve those who are in your kingdom but unable to come to your service here in this place. We ask that you would give us the strength to serve them and the knowledge that we need, so that we might bring Jesus Christ to them, and they might know that they are not disconnected, but always connected to your Son, Jesus Christ, and therefore to his body, the church. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, I just wanted to sort of say a welcome, and I'm going to truncate my part because it's my fault I'm late. So, welcome again, and all of you who are here, this section is going to deal more with you as volunteers. I'm sure Pam said a little bit about that, but we're sending that sheet around, I think at the end, to sign up.
Well, we started because you weren't here.
All right,
So
perfect. So we're doing it
it's
now.
going around.
But you'll see the person there, their caregiver, and then the name, and so that's the logistics behind it. What you're signing up for, I just wanted to remind you, is that we really see this as an ongoing visit, and so it's going to be 6 times a year. That's our suggestion. If you don't make it there, that's okay. But we thought, once every 2 months would be a nice thing for consistency and for people to get to know the person. And it actually matched with some of the research that Bethany Baker had brought up last time, because she mentioned that after 6 times of visiting throughout the year, a person who was in depression showed signs of sort of coming out of it. So that was a very encouraging thing to us, and I think sort of backing up the approach that we're promoting with you. The other thing you'll notice is we want 2 people to do it. The reason for that is for you to be a support system to each other, and 3 people is always better than 2. So I think it opens up more conversation, makes it more available for the person there, and if you feel at a loss for words, the other person can help you out. The other aspect of it is if you're sick, the other person can go and back and forth. So that's sort of where we're at with you volunteering. So now we really want to just prep you with some tips and tricks, maybe some philosophy behind visiting someone that is shut in, and then I'm going to deal with prayer and how to pray with somebody. So with that, I'll introduce Diane Johns, who has done so much wonderful work for us.
Hi, everyone. Just a little brief background on myself. So I have a degree in gerontology. I've always had a love since a little girl. I'd go visit my great-grandmother who was in her hundreds at a nursing home with my grandparents, and it just became something I was very interested in before I ever knew there was a degree. And then I went to school. I worked in the field for 7 years counseling families and older adults. And then a couple of years ago, I stepped into the role of a caregiver, and it's as if I knew nothing with everything that I went through. But so here I am, and I feel like I'm stepping back in and very happy with this. I think it's a great program, so hopefully we can reach out to a lot of people. So just to start, just to go through your folder real quick, and then we'll go, just so you know what's in there. On the left-hand side, we put a card that, on green card stock, but just a brief explanation of the program. Our thinking is if you go out and you visit your older adult, and then you could also put your name and number down there. They may not want you to stay at first. They may not be interested, and I'll address that in a few minutes. So this is something you can leave at their house, and it'll trigger a memory, and and you call again, you can refer to that or what have you. And if you can't even, in the beginning, maybe even get to their door, you could send it to them. On the other side is this wonderful sheet that Marilyn Stargard wrote. We're going to go through that together in just a minute. The next blue sheets is what Pastor will talk about with prayer. And then a wonderful article I think Gary found that you might refer to at some point. So getting started, and you're finding who you're going to match up with. Pastor mentioned how we wanted you to go with a second person. If your person is sick, you can call any of us, and if we're available, we're happy to sub in also. so that you don't have to go alone. We found when we started approaching people that they were like, oh, that's so nice, but no thank you. Which that's so not uncommon. If you think about it, if you were in your house and somebody called that maybe you don't know that very well and said, hi, I'd love to come see you 6 times a year and be a friendly visitor and what have you, it's a little intimidating, it may be. And the other thing is, you don't want to be a burden to anybody else. So even myself as a caregiver, my dad's friend, my dad had Alzheimer's, his friends would offer to go visit him, and I'd say, oh no, that's okay, I've got it, I didn't have it, I needed them, but I didn't want to burden them, and I didn't want to put them in the situation if my dad was having an off day and didn't remember them, but it worked out, they just went anyway. So our first step is getting through the door, or getting to their door and in. So maybe it may start with a phone call and introducing yourself and briefly, telling about the program. And then if they keep saying no, maybe, okay, Thanksgiving's coming up or Christmas or what have you, send a card and say, I'm gonna be stopping by with something, or whatever. And then it may just be a little tap tap at their door and taking a little gift. We're building a relationship, so of course they may not be as excited as we are. When they're going into their house, they may not feel at their best that day. So we've got to be very sensitive that this is something that is a work in progress, and in the end, it'll be wonderful for all. I really do believe that. So just be patient with that. And we would like these 6 visits, but like we said, if you can't, it's okay. And if you find we're going to the holidays now and it's crazy and you can't get there, don't feel the stress of that. That's not the point of the program. But if we can just start reaching out and trying to let these people know we're here and we care about you and you're not alone and what have you. So, okay, if we just look at this sheet here that Marilyn did, just to go through a few points that she had. This is, again, a great resource. She really touched on a lot. The one, if you go down to the third paragraph where she says, try not to patronize your senior, don't treat them like a child. It seems so simple, but it's very true. A lot of times you'll see people go up and they're talking so loud and the person may not even have a hearing problem. So it's not necessary to do that. Kind of follow their lead. And keep it simple and light. It doesn't have to be a deep conversation. So just if they don't have a hearing problem, no need to scream. When you are calling, though, that's a good tip, though. Let the phone ring, because sometimes if they can't get to it, people hang up, and that's a very frustrating thing if you're just finally making an effort to get to the phone and then they hang up. So let it ring. I guess going back to just that picture, don't act sorry for them. Does that make sense? Somebody said to me with my father, our goal is to make his moments happy because he had Alzheimer's. He may not remember I was there later, but in that moment, I was going to make him feel loved. I was going to make him feel important and special. So remember you're in the moment. They may not remember your visit, even your phone call, even your card. In that moment when you open the card, you feel special. And even with a card, you can pick it up later and reread it so many times. So keep that in mind. Every little thing you do, it's good. It's all good. You can't go wrong. So just be patient with them. Don't act sorry for them. You're going to visit and make a friend also. So you're getting a reward from this in addition. So going on to the next page, she talks about personal touch. That's a good one. You follow their lead. They may not be a hugger, so even if it's just a touch, but sometimes you got to be careful too of what their ailments are. A hug may hurt them, so just be conscious of that when you're with them. But sitting close, leaning in, showing your interest, those type of physical signs are always a good thing and makes them feel, instead of sitting across the room, pull your chair over to where their chair is, where they're comfortable. Another thing is that Marilyn made a really good point about in here that she says, you don't want to take away their independence. Don't do everything for them. That's our sense as helpers. We do it with our kids. We do it with people we care about. We want to jump in and help. But sometimes them going in, if they put cookies out, them walking to get that plate of cookies and giving it to you is a big thing. Let them do it. You can offer the help. Hey, do you want help? No, that's okay. I got it. It may take them 10 minutes to get in and back out, but that's okay. So let them, that may be their biggest event of the week is you coming to visit and them putting these cookies out for you. You know what I'm saying? So even if you don't like the cookies, whatever, partake, take a cookie. You know, take a nibble, break it in half, whatever. But just don't take anything. Of course, help. You know, if you know, are you cold? Do you want this blanket over here? You look cold, whatever. Offer it, but then just don't push it. Sometimes we just want to help so much, and we're coming from a good place in our heart, but it's not always what they want and not making them feel good. So, what to talk about? So, if you go visit an older person, the first thing probably, do you have grandchildren? That's always one of the first. Tell me about your kids, grandkids. That's great, and that'll be one visit, and you can always refer back to that. But if you can trigger other things, like their siblings, you grow up with your siblings, you love your siblings, you spend so much time with your siblings, and then no one really asks about them. When I worked as an internship, and I would pull out those questions, it's as if they were surprised that you were asking about that, you know, and I learned a lot, and then they would laugh and remember memories, and that sometimes triggers, you know, good memories. Sadly, my dad didn't remember my kids' names. He knew them, he recognized them, but if somebody was said, oh, how many grandkids do you have, and what are their names, he was put in a situation where he felt awkward. And then if that happens, you just cover it for him. Oh my gosh, no worries, it'll come to you. You know, make it easy for them, make it comfortable. Don't ever, and we all forget things. I mean, I'm forgetting things all the time. So just if that happens, just follow up and just make it seem like, don't say I get it, it happens to me all the time, because then again, you're trying to belittle what they're going through. But just say, oh, no worries, it'll come to you, and then move on. But back to if you can trigger, you know, what growing up, where did you grow up? You know, or have you lived here in Michigan a long time? Those questions may trigger other things that you can carry on a conversation with. I'm not saying don't ask about the grandchildren, because that's a huge thing of pride and love, but as your visits go on, hopefully they'll develop into more things. And if you're then struggling, look around their house. If you see a piano, do you play piano? Like, how long have you played piano? So you can find things in the house to make conversation with. Because if you're visiting somebody that was never married or had never had any kids, the family's gonna go quick. So, you know, so just find things. Or if there's something like that was crocheted, oh, do you crochet? Do you knit? I've always wanted to learn to crochet or knit. And then they like to educate you. That's the best part of a visit, is if they can educate me. Like, I'll feel like, oh, I'm getting something out of this, and they're feeling like, oh, they still have something to contribute, which they certainly do. So remember that, just trying to find things. And music is major. Like, music my dad was a music conductor. He taught music. He traveled to Europe. They sang all over. But he couldn't remember any of those things. But if I could play, on my iPhone, I would play classical music. And my dad was a conductor, and his hands would come up, and he would start conducting. So it's just a different part of the brain when you're dealing with memory issues of what music. Hymns, like if, you know, you talk about different hymns, it's amazing that the words for those old hymns come back. So keep that as a trigger. Your phone could be a big resource for, like, I would go on YouTube and find old hymns and play hymns too. So just a tip, just things to grab from. If they say, you know, they love TV shows, again, you could pull a clip on your phone, or if you have an iPad, it's probably easier for them to see sometimes. So just, you know, it's just kind of just trying to give you different ideas of what you can talk about. And again, like I said, if you ask them something and they don't remember, then try to just move the conversation along. Don't dwell on it. Don't make them feel bad for forgetting and whatever. And one other thing I want to focus on is if the caregiver's there, which we'll get into this more because that's a big area that still we want to face with this mission, is reaching out to the caregivers. And if the caregivers are at the visit too, that's a great thing. But sometimes when the caregiver's there, especially if you have somebody with dementia or memory issues, you're talking to the caregiver who also needs us and needs this conversation. But then you have this person who you're there to visit, and it's going over their head. They're kind of being ignored. So even if they can't join the conversation, if they don't get it, you can still say something. Like, you can still turn to them and bring them back into the conversation. Oh, you know, Mr. Jones, you know, look how dapper you look today, and what are you, you know, you look how pretty it is outside, or the birds, and I'm cold today, or whatever, even if it's something very simple, just bring him back in. Yes, talk to the caregiver and by all means be there and listen, but don't forget that older adult who's sitting between you. You know, does that make sense? That sometimes they can just kind of get lost. And so, let's see what else. I talked about the music and hymns. Again, when, going back to the caregiver, when you are reaching out to make contact, if the caregiver's listed, you could reach out to that caregiver first and let them know you're gonna make a visit. Or you might even ask Pastor or Pam or Gary, who would know them better, if it is somebody, a situation where you need to call the caregiver first. So, do you guys have any questions? I'm kind of popping around in my notes at all, or no? Again, it may take a little bit to get your visit, to get out there, and we know that, and I just think that if we can keep plugging along, and if you pick a person who's in a facility, that sometimes is easier. Usually, not all, most facilities I don't think have, well, they may have set visiting hours, but you don't have to make an appointment to go. You can just pop in. And that's kind of fun too, because sometimes you get more for your buck. You go to visit the other, like I would go visit my dad, and then I have a lot of these people kind of see somebody there to visit, and I pull them in. Another thing I would do, if the person is mobile, granted we're going into cold season, so you can't go really walking. If they're in a facility, to walk up and down the halls, if they're in a wheelchair, to push them up, just to get them out of their room is a good thing. If they're in their home, a lot of times they're sitting in the same chair all day long watching TV and could go through, you know, so that's what we're trying to break up. So if they're sitting, maybe they're comfortable in their chair and that's fine, but you could say to them, hey, do you want to sit in the dining room and have some tea or whatever it is, just to get a change of pace for them. And then just ask them, do you need anything from me? But don't dwell on all their ailments. If they want to talk about it, great, but they may not want to talk about it. They may want to ask you a ton of questions. Do you have kids? Do you have, fine, tell them. But like Pastor mentioned, if you have a cold or anything, don't go. We don't want to, I mean, they pick them up so easily. So.
I got a question about like lifting them or putting them in a chair or whatever. There's gotta be a liability there.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay.
Don't,
Right.
and thank you for bringing that up,
Yeah.
because for both of you,
Right.
I don't have medical background, and I was lifting my parents' some, and I'm like, I'm doing this wrong. I'm so doing it wrong. I don't know if it's hurting them, and it doesn't. If they need help, you know, you just say, you know what, I don't want to hurt you. I can't move you. If there's anything they ask you to do that you're uncomfortable with, don't do it. I mean, you know.
So like if you wanna take them out to a different, area of the facility.
They'd have to be a little more
care-
mobile.
Okay.
They'd have to be a little more mobile,
Okay.
and you can, that's a great point, you gauge it. Because you'll see when you come to the door, did they get up to come to the door to you? Did they holler to you and say, come in? So, you know, gauge that. So yeah, don't ask them to move if not. But if they're shuffling around or they look uncomfortable, or you can even ask them, do you get around? You know, are you still driving? Which probably most of these aren't. But, you know, kind of gauge that from there. But don't put yourself in any situation to lift them. If there's any concern, then call somebody else, or gosh, if it's really bad, then 911. But hopefully we don't get to that, you know. Yeah.
In regards to that, one of the names on our list, and I will say that it stays in your vice correct, I have been picking her up from St. Anne's Mead and bringing her to the Wednesday lunch and worship, you know, every couple of months. The last time that I picked her up, it was very, very difficult getting her in and out of the vehicle, to the point where I had someone from St. Anne's Mead assist me get her in. And I just made the decision that, in addition to her, you know, her memory issues that are going on, that I'm not going to go through that anymore for her sake as well as for ours. Just make the visit and stay on site as opposed to attempt to move
Right,
them.
right. And if that's the case, if they're in a wheelchair and you can push them down to the dining room, she's at a facility, so there you'd have somebody to help you, which was good, but, yeah,
Err on the side of caution.
right.
Diane, I have one question, well, a couple of them really, but one of them, I know we shouldn't bring any food or anything like that, nothing edible, because we don't know what their meds are and their what about a flower or something like that?
Thank you for mentioning that. So Marilyn put this nice little kit together of stuff, and you can pull from this if you want. I think she has lotions in here and puzzles in here, little books with sayings, anything like that. And in regards to the flowers, yes, and we talked about, do you wanna, cause we talked about a lot
Yeah, we're
together.
still working and putting this together, but, many weeks, people will donate their flowers that they're sponsoring in the chapel, in the sanctuary, in the lectern, the pulpit. So Marilyn is gonna start putting those together in little bundles for people to take. So, if you want some flowers, call ahead here to make sure that, some weeks somebody takes them all home because they purchased them and that's what they wanna do. But, call and I'll let you know if there's any flowers around or available. Cause we usually have a lot of flowers, so,
Or an artificial bouquet.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine
and
too,
yeah,
because then they
yeah.
can keep something like that for a long time.
Exactly.
You don't have to worry about allergies.
That's
Yes,
true.
I know there's somebody, I know, but yeah, the food is true with the meds, that you gotta be careful and that's where a caregiver might, if you can talk to them, if there's a family member, and, like I know my great uncle, he was 100, and it was his birthday, and they wanted to know if he loved chocolate, but he wasn't really, and we're like, take him chocolate, the man's 100, he can have his chocolate, because he wanted to have, but that was our decision as the family. Right, I mean, and it wasn't mixing with his meds, it just was his blood pressure and all that, but it was, he was 100 and he wants his chocolate, and you know what? Uncle Ernie can have his chocolate. So that's a very good point though. So yeah, anything you can take them, and the one thing is, everybody loves to get something, they don't wanna ask for something, and everybody loves a compliment. A compliment, even, when I would go visit my dad and I'd walk in, these ladies would, and I just like if their sweatshirt had birds on it. One lady always wore birds, and I'm like, oh, I love you got your birds, and she would just light up. You can do the simplest comment, and it can just change somebody. I mean, you may notice that when you're at the deli, and if they're being a little grumpy, you can say one thing, and you just turn their day around. It's kind of a nice little reward both ways. So. This is something that's so, like I was telling when we had a meeting that I had on all my college books, some cheesy line, but I put it on my books and I found it recently, and it said, older people need so little, but it's the so little they need so much. And I thought, I guess that was my motive to get me through college. I don't know, it was on everything. I liked it. But it's so true. You don't really have to do much, but oh my gosh, the rewards that you get back. I think that's why I like working with this population so much, because I get so much out of it. So, but the one last thing I want to say, because I don't want to go way over, but this is a work in progress. We're kind of all a team. So if you do something that works, or you do something and you're trying and it's not working, reach out to us. Reach out, and we hope to get back. I think, did we say we're going to get back in January again? To have another meeting and kind of see where you're at. Now, don't stress out. Like I said, if you can't get a meeting in before then, it's okay. But we'd like you to just try and reach out and start that relationship. And if you and whoever you're going to visit with, if you want someone else to go, I'm always happy to try and pop in. And if I can do it and hop in, or if whoever you're visiting with can't go that day, like I said, reach out to us. Any of us will sub in.
Is it something that's kind of required to go, or do you, if the person you can't go with you, and I know you may not always be
Right,
available,
right.
can you go by yourself?
Oh, yeah, I guess
But
you
not-
could, but again, it's just more the situation of, making it easier on you if you walk into a situation that maybe you're not comfortable. I would say once your visit's down the road and you know the person better, then I would say maybe more then. And, that just triggered one other thing I was gonna say about, when you go visit, if you're not popped out, it'll come later. See? No worries, it's all good, right? So, so reach back out. We thought maybe we'd even start like, I think you even mentioned this, like an email that we could all just pop into and have an open conversation. Because don't be frustrated, and if you're frustrated, reach out to us, because that's what we're here, and we all have the same passion to reach these people, and we have big goals for this group. We will, right? We're gonna be so busy. So just let us know if you need anything, if you have any questions, and we'll be happy. And thank you, all of you, for agreeing to do this. Yeah.
What is a sensible amount of time to plan on being with us?
I think we said about 30 minutes, right?
Is
Right.
that,
And that is what I was gonna say. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you. So what I was gonna say is that is our target, but sometimes you may go and the person is not having a good day, doesn't feel like it. I would go visit my dad someday, I'd be there 5 minutes and he's ready to take a nap. It's okay, it's all good. You were there for your moment, you made them happy in your moment. If they're a hugger, you give them a hug and say, okay, I'll be checking back. Have a good nap, sweet dreams, whatever it may be. And, but we said target 30, but gauge it. You may have a person that, and if it's going long, you don't feel guilty that you have to go. All right, thanks for sharing. I'll be back because we got lots to talk about. All right.
Do these seniors, they know we're gonna contact them? Have you talked about the logistics of that yet? Are you going to?
Well, that's introducing
Yeah, there
Pastor
we go.
Walworth. Let's,
He stop. Okay, we'll take it. You take it from there.
All right, well, I'll get to that in one sec. First, I want to point out on that sheet, for those of you who have signed up for the people, there are some people you do have to contact their caregiver because they can't answer the phone. So we're gonna mark it. I'll tell you now, but we'll mark it on the sheet and let you know. Okay. So it's John, who is Gwen Baker's husband. You have to contact him. Gwen can't pick up the phone. Betty Chuslow, same way. You have to contact Nancy. Larry Dickinson, you'll contact his wife Elaine. And Bill Rolfe, you'll contact Joyce. And then Tom Gray will pick up the phone if you're visiting both of them. So I just want to put that on your radar, that there are some people who just can't pick up the phone. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go, but that's just something you should be aware of. So we're going to mark that. If you put your name down, we'll remind you. Okay. All right. So the other thing is, it sort of popped into my mind when you guys were talking through this. It'll be marked on that address if they're in a nursing home. And so there's really only a couple. Well, the last four are all at Fox Run, and then Betty Chuslow and Vi Strick are in nursing homes as well. But the rest of them are all in their houses, and that's actually part of what we were concerned about, is getting out to people in their houses, because at a nursing home at least you have some people around. But we ended up just visiting everybody. So just to put that in. Now, your logistics question was what again?
Yeah, do they know we're contacting them within a period of time? How's the?
No. So originally we were going to do this, and then we realized that as we started asking the caregivers about this, if it's indirect, so Mr. P and I were sort of putting out feelers. Everyone I asked said no. So then we realized if we came here, we'd be like, well, by the way, Faithful Friends is defunct, so now go home. I think it's going to be better when you contact them. So we talked about what the best way to go about it was, and some of these people you may know. If you know them, you don't have to worry about it. If you don't, I'm offering myself and Mr. P for, if you want to know more, please contact us and get some background on them. We're more than happy to talk with you about the visits we've had with them, what to expect. And in that way, I think you can prepare to call them if that's what you need. If you're just ready to jump in, please do. I think as they find out who you are, you can either preface it with, we sort of talked about two ways to do it. You can either say, hey, I'm from Redeemer, but I really want to come visit. Can I come visit you sometime just to, I want to bring you something. Maybe you could use an occasion like Thanksgiving and say, can I bring you something for Thanksgiving? So there's that way of not really mentioning Faithful Friends as like the organization. Not that you can't. But the other way is that you could say, I'm part of Faithful Friends at church. We're starting this group and we're reaching out to people. I'd love to come visit you. So both of those are options when you're making that call. Gary and I have always, we're there, so we're constantly visiting these people. But their perspective of us is we have to. Okay. I know that sounds bad, but that's really what it comes down to. Now, granted, we provide a wonderful service and that we give them the word of the Lord. But when you go, you emphasize you want to do this, right? That you're volunteers, and that's awesome. And as Diane said, you can't screw up. There is no way. The fact that you love enough to do this is a big deal. One thing that we were talking about is we're a community now. Whether or not you wanted to, when you sign that line, you're part of the community. So, I'm gonna support you in every way I can, and so is everyone else on the committee. We're all committed to this, and we are, we're gonna provide not just this, but anything else you need for supporting you and visiting, but also when we get together again. We're gonna end up with lots of different experiences. I know Mr. P and I have already had many experiences. He has way more than me, but I'm catching up. So I just want to emphasize that we're together now, and we'll see each other's faces more. We're gonna debrief. We're gonna have another meeting in January 6th. We're keeping it the first of the month because that way I don't have to jump down to the Deaf Church right away. So we're gonna meet hopefully on January 6th. If enough people can't do it, just let us know. We can change it. But we just want you to have something on the radar so that as you're slogging through, calling this person again and again, just know they do the same thing to us. Because there have been many times when I call people and they say, no thanks. And you could be like Mr. P, just show up at their door. But
Well, like I said,
Lunchtime, though.
Yeah.
it's not surprising that they would say no.
Right.
Again, like I was saying, I mean, one, they don't want to be a burden. They may be in their bathrobe, whatever it may be. So that's not surprising. That's why we're trying to build a relationship first.
Yeah. And so on the community aspect, please give us your email. If you don't have one, give us your number and mention you don't have an email so that we can make sure we're staying in contact.
Pastor, just one phrase
yeah.
just came into my mind. Just keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, you are multiplying ministry. That's really what this is all about. As Pastor suggested, we're paid, we're supposed to be doing this. But you guys are helping to multiply ministry, the body of Christ in action.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
All right, so this box, Marilyn Stargard said, please take these things. She can't return them. So please feel free to stop by, take something as an idea or whatever. They're for you. They're yours to take. So you can come by, swing by the church, and grab it before you go. All right. So that being said, I want to look at this little blue sheet I gave you. Keep in mind, all these things are the gospel, not the law. Okay. I'm not telling you have to do this, but I think someone mentioned one of the number one fears of people was praying with people. Yeah, that was you. Yeah, Mr. P said that. So don't be afraid. This is just a simple outline. And the reason why I used what I did is explained on the other blue sheet. Wow, color coordination. Thank you. So I explained it there, but in reality, it's just a simple way of bringing back things that they've always had. Being part of the church, we have this red hymnal, and however many times you may hear things about it, one thing is for certain: everyone knows what this is. It's a memory. It's something to hold on to, and it's something where you talked about singing hymns. I will sing hymns to people when I go visit. Do what you feel comfortable with. But I'll tell you a trick for everyone who has a smartphone. If you have a smartphone, you type in TLH number, whatever one you want to sing. Someone has done it in piano on YouTube, and you can play it. So every hymn in here has been done. And I use this just because, I'm sure they've heard something in here before. I was at Bill Rolfe's house, and Joyce isn't here, is she? No, I can't see her. But we sang, what did we sing? A Mighty Fortress or something along those lines. And Bill sang the whole thing. He didn't even have a hymnal. I mean, it's amazing the things that people recall by music. And so I highly encourage that. I put it in here. But that's just one testament to the fact that we have a liturgy, and that's called a pattern. That's all it is. But this pattern is deeply ingrained in us. To have an invocation is something that immediately brings to mind church for them. Not only are you calling upon God's name, but you're bringing them into the service yet again. To do the creed with them. To call to mind all the things we actually believe. That's the great thing about the creed, is it's the most succinct confession of our faith. And if you wonder, oh well, I don't know a bunch about how to explain this to people or whatever, this solves all those problems. It's something that they've been trained in, something that every Lutheran has confirmed for that exact reason. When you hear those phrases, you remember. You remember the word of the Lord. And not only you remember the word of the Lord, but you're transported to that building. So it gives you that opportunity. The devotion, you can pick whatever one you want. But we have the Portals of Daily Prayer here. Please take it, use it. It is awesome because it's so very short and very good. So, keep that in mind. Just use that as your little devotion. Say it shortly, and then the Lord's Prayer. So going back to the Creed of the Lord's Prayer, I have prayed with people. I have done this with people who have severe memory loss, as in they don't know who anybody is anymore, and they will start saying this right away. It is amazing what I've seen. And so that's the other reason why this is so important, is that you're recalling that to them, because our Lord doesn't forget. And somehow or other, this has stuck in their brains and continues to give them comfort and strength. So when you go, don't think you're just going to give a pat on the back and show your love. You're not just showing your love. You're the hands and feet of Christ. For all intents, this is you bringing Christ to them. When they see your face, they see Christ's face. That's why when Christ said, he said, whatever you do to the least of these, you're doing to me. And so for your sake, you're serving Christ in doing this. On the back is for you. Okay? These are prayers that I wrote. Do not feel required to read them. They're just a reminder that it's good to pray in preparation and in conclusion for yourself. This bottom one, I know it sort of sounds bad, but you are going to bear burdens. Every time I leave somewhere, as much as I don't want to, I feel burdened in the sense that I want to help this person, and many times I can't. I mean, either I can't bring the memories back, I can't make them not have cancer, I can't make them feel better, and that's heavy. It weighs very heavy on you. So when you go out, you're sort of offering your heart in that sense. You're opening yourself up to a lot of burden, but not by yourself, right? We bear these burdens with one another and with Christ. So that's why that last prayer seems depressing, but it's really not meant to be. It's meant to be realistic, that we're embarking on this journey because we're willing to bear the burdens of those who are around us, those who cannot come to places, those who are stuck where they are, and to let them know that they're not forgotten, that the body of Christ is exactly that. It cannot be disconnected, nor can it be separated. We said that today, right? All Saints Day, perfect day for this. We didn't pick that, but that's all right. It works. So keep that in mind, that we not only support you, but we are going to keep you all in our prayers. We'll use this list as one of our prayer lists. And we will continue to email you. And email us, contact us, let us know if there's anything you need or whatever it is. We're here to support you. All right, with that, I wanted to open it up for questions before we leave, just if you have anything final. So, any questions? Again, this is not the last call, so we're going to email you. We'll let you know. We'll give you updates. But any questions before we go? Yeah.
When we signed up on the clipboard, should we have written down our information, or will you send that out to us?
I'll send it to you.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sure.
And again, to reiterate what Pastor said, by all means, contact any of us to get any additional background information before you make your initial call or visit or whatever. Because we've pretty much had contact with all these people in some capacity. And we will continue likewise with
Right,
our visitation. This is just in addition to.
Also, I did send an email to everybody thanking you for coming to the first meeting. So if you didn't get that email, maybe I don't have your email correct. So stop and see me before you leave so we make sure I get that. Or if you need to be contacted another way, let me know that as well.
All right.
Pam, could I just ask, is January 6th the Decoration Takedown Day or not?
Oh,
That seems like
Well, I thought we would meet and then take down a few ornaments as we're walking
What
by.
if I get some ornaments in this room?
all right. Hey, so you can take them down.
It
all
could
right.
be, I forgot to look.
Well, we will close with prayer. One final thought, if you know anyone who missed this or they grab you, I'm recording these so that you can have them for later if you want to go back and look at them yourself. I'll make them available as soon as I can, so just to put that on your radar. All right, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks that you have encouraged us this day by your Holy Spirit, reminding us that all the saints who have gone before us are with you, and that we too strive for that final goal of our heavenly home. While we are here, dear Lord, help us to encourage all those in the church militant, to help them and encourage them and strengthen them by your word. We give you thanks for all of these people here, especially for the Faithful Friends Committee, Diane Johns, Pam Tyndall, Gary Priscorn, and Mary Stargard. We ask that you would continue to bless and keep all the people here. Help us to become a vibrant community of those who support your body on earth. In Jesus' name. Oh, and if you didn't sign in blood, you have to, go.
I don't think I got the email.
No.
Okay. We're gonna see that now.
Oh, cut that out.
Did not